It doesn't seem like the Democrat liberal leaders of these inner cities can do anything right. For the last decade, they've been mocking our border states, Texas and the like, who have been saying we need help at the border. We have millions of people crossing over. And what did they do? They called those leaders in those border states bigots and racists. Border states have reached the end of their abilities to deal with it, and now they're shipping these migrants up to northern cities. And within months, these northern cities can no longer handle it. These southern states have been doing this for decades, and now these inner cities, they're already collapsing at the influx of these illegal immigrants being brought in. And Chicago is amongst the worst. They just had a 5-year-old die who crossed over with their family, who was staying in one of these migrant warehouses that they set up. And under this situation, Mayor of Chicago, Brandon Johnson, does what any good Democrat liberal leader does. He blames somebody else. He deflects and he says it was Greg Abbott's fault. See, they're just sending these illegal migrants up to our cities, and they're cold and they're wet and they're hungry. And that's why this 5-year-old died. From all of the research I've done, this family entered Chicago on November 30th. The 5-year-old died on December 20th. That means that they were in this migrant warehouse in Chicago for 3 weeks before this 5-year-old died. And he's going to blame Greg Abbott for the one that caused this. You don't think it was during those 3 weeks that he was staying in your warehouse that the problem happened? And it wasn't just this 5-year-old. It's multiple other kids that are having these problems, including some of the women and especially the pregnant women that are there. And so these corrupt hypocrites, what do? Go out there on the news stations and blame other people. So check out this video clip and I'll talk a little bit more about it after.
Of Texas is determined to create chaos throughout the entire country. And this is after the city council passed an ordinance that I put forward to provide more structure, to provide more calm and some more coordination with how buses are arriving in the city of Chicago. And quite frankly, what's actually quite disturbing is that many of the individuals who are coming from the border, there's no coordination at the border either. So many of the individuals are not being treated, they're not being processed, they're not getting medical attention. So by the time they arrive in the city of Chicago, they're coming in quite severe conditions: cold, tired, wet, hungry, traumatized. The type of chaos that this governor is insistent on creating throughout this entire country.
See, it's Greg Abbott's fault. It's Texas's fault, not our current administration, not the fact that DHS is just allowing people to come across, not the fact that 8 million migrants have crossed over in the last 3 years. And Chicago can't even handle 10,000, 20, 30,000. And Texas is getting 10,000 a day going in there. You're only getting a tiny portion of these. And so what does he do? It's like Texas is over flooded with this. They're dealing with like 90% of the problem. And Chicago is just getting a little tiny piece and they can't even deal with it. He said, well, we're passing new rules and laws to try to make it better. Yeah, they're trying to shut their borders down to this. Just so you know, the inner city mayors, the inner city liberal Democrat mayors are literally trying to shut the borders of their cities for these illegal entrants. Meanwhile, they argue that the borders to our south, where Texas is, should be freely opened. So the illegals should be able to easily go into those states by the tens of thousands every day. But our city's borders should be shut to any of them coming here. That's literally what they're doing. And with the small percentage that they're getting in their cities, they can't even handle them. They can't feed them or take care of them. And people are getting sick and dying in these inner cities. This is what incompetent leadership looks like: complaining about others who are dealing with the majority of the problem. And this crybaby, rather than dealing with these issues, goes on news stations and blames other people. And he goes on news stations where nobody calls him out. But wait a second, Mr. Mayor, this 5-year-old was in this facility for 3 weeks before they died. How can you blame Greg Abbott? They've been under your control for 3 weeks. I mean, even if they arrived, as you said, tired and hungry and cold and wet. What are you talking about? Wet. What are you talking about? I mean, just the 20-hour trip in the bus alone, you're going to dry off inside that bus. I mean, I'm not sure exactly what he's talking about. Hungry? They're feeding them down there. We have DHS agents who are making sandwiches all day long for these people. I don't know what you're talking about. I think they might have gotten tired, hungry, cold, and wet inside of your little warehouse facility over the last 3 weeks. I think that's where the problem would have happened. You don't think over those 3 weeks you could have had medical personnel take a look at these people? No. Chicago couldn't do it. This mayor couldn't do it, but Greg Abbott's supposed to do it. Texas is supposed to do it with way more people entering there than are actually entering in your city. So you can't do it with a tiny percentage, but they're supposed to do it with a larger percentage. This is the question this guy needs to be asked. But no one asks this. They just sit there and they look like, oh my goodness, he's completely right. Meanwhile, he's shutting his city down to these people being bussed in. They're closing their borders off in these inner cities as they tell the South to keep their borders open. These people are evil. They're evil, corrupt hypocrites. And they go out there and they say things, and people with itching ears listen to them. Usually liberals and Democrats. Oh, this sounds so good. We need to follow what this mayor is saying. Texas is doing the right thing. They have made this stuff illegal, and they're trying to get their officers to send these people back. Meanwhile, the federal government is pulling these people in. And Texas and other states, their resources have run dry. And now they're trying to get the rest of the country to bear just some of the burden of this. And the rest of the country can't do it. Can't do anything. And they complain after weeks and months, cry about it. And people are dying in their inner cities. They can't handle anything. This is disgusting. This guy is terrible. Voted in by the people of Chicago. Once again, people of Chicago, congratulations. You know how to do it. How many decades of Democrat liberal mayors do you need? How far do you need your city to fall? How bad does your economy, your jobs, how bad does it need to get before you stop putting this in power? Is it because they just keep telling you they're going to give you checks? Because they're going to give you reparations? Why do you keep voting these people in? They suck. They're terrible. But we do know that some people, their eyes are opening up at this point. Because they're starting to see, wait a second, now they're pulling resources from us and they're putting it towards these migrants. It's only because of this money thing that some people's eyes are opening up. But it needs to open up for more than that, because these leaders have been using you for the longest time. Please stop this by electing people in there who know what they're doing, not these people who are just crybaby complainers and can't even handle the simplest of issues. What do you think about this? Leave your comment below. Catch you on the next video.